Hey everyone, so 2026 right around the corner. I wanted to sit down and take a moment to check out some of the upcoming games for next year that I'm looking forward to. Now, I should let you know this is a very early list. For certain, in the coming months, we'll be getting a lot more other games revealed and release dates announced that will be coming in 2026. But as of right now, this is the stuff that I'm excited about playing in the coming year as of the middle of October 2025. So let's just jump right into it. As a recovered Black Desert Online addict, I do have somewhat high hopes for Pearl Abyss's next major project that goes by the name Crimson Desert. For all of its faults, BDO had some really enjoyable combat, a ton of interesting systems and features, and a world that I really enjoyed exploring. And Crimson Desert basically looks to be a single-player expanded version of some of what they did well with BDO. Although the combat system is action, it's also a bit more granular looking with manual grapples, all sorts of martial arts and wrestling inspired moves, in addition to the basic suite of action combat abilities and attacks. I think probably my biggest initial turnoff are all of the way over the top particle effects used here, which, something that they also did a fair bit in BDO. Although I have heard you're gonna have the option to lower, if not outright disable those, but just the baseline of the game, it kind of clunks up the visuals quite a bit. Also, I will say, I've heard some not so great feedback about the game's controls, which sounds ridiculous to complain about, but I have seen this critique pop up in pretty much every early hands-on impression video that I've watched about the game, a lot of which came out of various conventions and preview events. Apparently, a lot of the actions require some abnormal input combinations with holding multiple buttons down at once to perform even basic attacks. Funny enough though, this was also a thing in Black Desert Online, but it's one that I enjoyed. If you didn't play that game, they did have the option to keybind a lot of your abilities on your keyboard from 1 to 9 and 0, and you could just hit a single button and use a skill. But at the same time, they had a lot of multi-input options where you would say hold down shift and then press W, and sometimes multiple inputs at once to perform certain abilities instead of just hitting the keybind version. And doing this multiple input variation would result in benefits like bonus damage or increased crit or some other perks. And this was one of the things that I actually really enjoyed about BDO's combat system. On the mouse and keyboard, I think it felt quite good, and it kind of made it feel more like a fighting game where you're having to input again instead of just hitting a single keybind. But the controls and the particle effects aside, I do really like a lot of what else they've shown about this game. Lots of cool, interesting looking features, mechanics, and gameplay related things, all in addition to the fact that it's going to be a big open world action combat game. The combat that we've seen actually looks quite fun. I really love all of the stuff showcased in the recent IGN gameplay video. Boss fights in particular seem pretty interesting, like that big tanky guy who summons up these spirits to go on the offensive for him. Lots of traversal stuff. You got a grapple hook, a double jump. Looks like you've got the ability to glide, if not outright fly. You can also ride mounts like dragons. We saw that in some of the early gameplay footage. Tons of different environmental objects to interact with, like the ability to fire and load cannons. The world is really detailed looking with lots of big open spaces, these big structures and buildings that seem to be fully explorable in their interior. And apparently they've got destructible environments. Like during the boss fight, we see these pillars collapsing as the boss slams into them with certain abilities. I do know that they mentioned as well having some sort of multiplayer in the game, though this is not going to be an MMO, although it was originally intended to be like a prequel to BDO. That's no longer the case. Rather, it's looking like it's going to be more co-op stuff, maybe even some shared world elements for parts of the game. All of the info I found on this topic, though, has been rather vague, unfortunately. But anyways, yeah, lots of stuff that I'm really looking forward to with this game. Currently, Crimson Desert is scheduled to release on March 19th, coming to PC, PlayStation, and Xbox. Today's video is sponsored by Holzkern. This is hands down one of my personal favorite sponsors because I genuinely really like and actively use their product. Namely, I've got a few different watches that I wear literally every day. You no doubt have seen me with one on like this in one of my videos, pretty much every single one of them over the past few years. I wear these watches all the time. Now, if you've not heard about them, Holzkern makes these rather unique watches using a variety of natural materials. You got watches with gemstones, woods, pearls, and straight up rocks, bro. Literally, they make watches with rocks. I got rocks in the bands of some of my watches. So Holzkern products are manufactured in small quantities. They do this to ensure responsible production. As mentioned, these are all crafted from natural materials, making each of them unique and of high quality. Every product also comes with a 2-year guarantee, and they offer free express worldwide shipping, covering custom fees with purchases typically arriving in 2 to 5 business days. Yeah, I like these things. They're cool looking watches. I genuinely enjoy wearing them. If you'd like to learn more and maybe pick up one for yourself or as a gift, check out our link in the description below and be sure to use the code FORCE at checkout. This will get you 15% off any purchases. PVKK, or as it's properly called, Planetin Verteidigungskommandant Kommandant. Hopefully my German lessons are paying off here. This game looks like cool as hell. Sehr cool, yeah? You play as a planetary defense cannon operator tasked with fending off an ongoing invasion from the comfort of your cozy little bunker. So the game mixes mundane tasks, passing the time as you maintain your facility, read, or play some games, with these intense moments where you are being invaded and have to manually shoot the incoming threats out of the sky, else the planet's getting destroyed. It is such like a fun idea for a game, and it seems really well done. Now, according to their description, they say that the core gameplay loop is going to have you interacting with this retro tech cockpit filled with satisfying buttons, levers, dials, and switches, managing energy generators, scanning the skies for enemy vessels, analyzing these threats, calculating fire trajectories, and executing precise firing procedures, all with limited resources. Progression and upgrade systems will include between missions, you'll be maintaining and improving your bunker, customizing your space as well with earned resources to prepare for your next assault. You'll face moral dilemmas, tough choices that challenge your ethics and loyalty. Are you going to follow orders blindly or question the regime's motives? These decisions will shape the story and will lead to one of multiple different endings that the game has. And there'll also be secrets to discover inside of your bunker. You can engage in these escape room style puzzles to uncover hidden items and clues about what is really going on outside of the walls of your secure, cozy bunker. Yeah, the game seems really cool. Like, I cannot wait to check it out. Oder ich möchte dieses Spiel wirklich spielen. Yeah, I can't wait. Looking forward to it. Sorry for the German guys if you don't speak it. Anyways, PVKK is scheduled to release on March 19th, coming to PC via Steam. So the Hitman games, they were fantastic. Like, easily one of the most unique and well-executed series in the past decade, I would say. Well, the developer behind them, IO Interactive, is now making a new James Bond game, and it looks pretty solid. Basically, it seems like they took some of the elements of their Hitman formula, added more action, cinematic over-the-top combat, and a bunch of the Bond narrative and stuff. In fact, I've loved pretty much everything that I saw in the recent gameplay showcase they revealed, barring some moments with rough-looking performance when all of the explodey stuff was happening. But assuming they iron that out, this is looking pretty slick, dude. Seems like the game will be a blending of these more down-tempo narrative-building sections where you're casing a scene, trying to figure out your way in, which there will be a load of different options. They've talked about this being the case, and it was the case in Hitman, and then mixed with combat in between. In the gameplay reveal from a couple of months back, we saw it open up with a few minutes of driving a car through the countryside, in the process talking to the team about the upcoming mission, and I actually really enjoyed this bit. Like, there was a bunch of good chatter and character building, some genuinely funny moments, and then when they get to the place they were going, Bond was meant to like wait in the car, but then he sees like this suspicious bellhop, so he decides to check him out. The team told him to stay put, and he's like, yeah, sure thing, I'm staying put, and he said that as he was walking towards the building. And then at that point, he goes around the environment, like checking out the outside of this facility. You can see a lot of the Hitman DNA in here, like tons of different NPCs you can interact with, all going about their business, and you get different bits of information depending on who you talk to or what you overhear about the area, about the event that's taking place, and about potential ways to get where you need to be. At one point in this process, the team checked in on Bond. They're like, hey, how's everything going? He's like, yeah, everything's nice and quiet out here in the car. He was in fact not in the car. So eventually he sneaks his way past some guards, gets into the building, gets some info. They see him coming through a window, and he's like, hey, I'm the breach checker. And they're like, okay, guys, sure. Thanks, yeah, I believe you. He speaks to the bartender and gets some details about the person he's looking for, and then the video transitions to later on where he eventually found the target who just nearly escaped, and then they transition into this car chase scene. You're driving through the streets, jumping gaps, crashing into stuff. Eventually it all ends at this airstrip where you have to burst in and try to stop this plane from taking off. At this point we get a good look at combat, which blends this third-person cover shooting with this brawl-style melee fighting, like grabbing NPCs, tossing them around, literally shoving them off of ledges, landing on top of them, then jumping up, shooting some enemies, throwing a weapon to stun one before finishing them off. You got exploding barrels everywhere, which was kind of funny. At one point, he shoots a car with a single shotgun shot and the whole thing explodes. I don't know why, it would just look so ridiculous. I couldn't stop laughing. And the whole thing, there's like a lot of like these Bond movie moments, like the crazy stuff, right? So like he's driving this luggage transport vehicle to catch up to a moving plane, and then he lifts the thing that the luggage comes down on and then climbs up to it to get to the wing, and then he's fighting on the wing. Like, again, a lot of it really feels like a Bond movie. I think they've done a really good job from what I've seen here anyways. Yeah, despite some moments of shaky performance, everything else I think looks fantastic. Like, I can't wait to play this. 007 First Light will be launching on March 27th, coming to PC, PlayStation, Xbox, and Switch 2. Slay the Spire is easily one of my all-time favorite indie games. When it released back in 2019, I was properly obsessed with this for months. It was also one of the few games that I've actually spent a significant amount of time playing the phone version as well. It just worked really well. Basically, this is a deck building, tower climbing, roguelike game. You pick a starter deck, you do the roguelike thing of progressing through levels, choosing from branching paths, and then using the cards in your deck that more or less act as attacks, spells, buffs, and debuffs for your character. You battle the enemy, you push as far as you can get, eventually you run out of life and you die, and you start over again. Along the way, as you're going through this progress, you will be collecting new cards as well as various types of passive buffs that make you stronger, and it was just like a really fun, addicting game. It's one of those things where I would get through like a 45-minute, 60-minute run, and I'd be like, I want to go again. I want to go again. It was really, really satisfying. So the sequel plans to take this foundation and ideally improve upon it. In fact, from what we've seen, it very much looks like the same game, just more of it and better. So visuals are a lot more polished with a lot of animation work as well. In fact, it looks like the game has been built on an entirely new engine. They have said there is double the amount of content in the game from the previous one. There's of course going to be new characters, and those come with corresponding new decks and cards, new items, enemies, events, and environments we'll be checking out, and a brand new feature of these alternate acts. So once you unlock this, you're then going to be randomly greeted with one of two possible acts every time you go through a run, each offering a brand new environment and a new twist on your playthrough. So for example, they've said that Act 1A is this overgrowth. It is a lush, tangled ruin with much of its fauna resembling mystical woodland creatures and sentient flora that could eat you alive. This is the act that you have primarily been seeing in any of the teasers and trailers they've done for the sequel here. However, they also have Act 1B, which is the alternate version known as the Underdocks. It is a miry waterway connected to the Spire sewer system from which all manner of mutant sea creatures and vagrants might emerge. They've only begun just coming up with this like content and working on some of the cool creatures in these murky depths. So this system here is going to apply to every act in the game, with more being introduced throughout its early access, ultimately doubling the amount of content that the original had, and I think this is a cool improvement. On top of that, they are promising some expanded mod support for the sequel. Yeah, the original game was loads of fun. If this is just that, but better with double the content, great, sign me up, honestly. Slay the Spire 2 is scheduled to enter Steam Early Access this coming March. No exact day has been announced as of yet. Cairn is a survival roguelike climbing simulator. You play as a mountaineer attempting to reach the summit of Mount Kami, which requires planning a route and executing an incredibly treacherous climb. This is a pretty cool looking game. It has had a demo out for a while now, and I've heard a lot of positive buzz about it. I'm gonna jump in and check it out myself, hopefully sometime in the coming weeks. So there's two primary things that this game focuses on. There's the climbing element, and then there's the survival. It features a realistic simulation system that allows for intuitive climbing, they say. While you are scaling, constantly you'll be searching for the best holds to place your hands and feet upon, while having to maintain your posture, your effort, and balance, otherwise you'll fall, and you don't want to fall. You play as Ava, whose goal is being the first human to ever reach the summit of Mount Kami. Along the route, you'll be meeting unexpected companions and hearing from those left on the ground. It's also an open game where you are free to climb anywhere as you make your ascent. It's not just like you've got one pre-designated climbing spot after another. You're climbing this mountain and you can go where you want, approaching each of these rock faces, looking at and planning your route ahead of time, and then carefully making your way up. There will be unexpected challenges that present themselves as you go through this process, and again, beyond the climbing part of the game, there's this whole layer of survival where you'll have to manage your resources, your pitons, your chalk, your finger tape, your food, your water, and your medicine. These are all limited and can be found both during and in between your climbs. Now, I know it seems really simple, but I've heard very good things about it from the people who have played. Definitely going to check it out myself. Looking forward to it. Cairn is releasing sometime in the first quarter of 2026. The original Outward was one of the most unique RPGs I've ever played. A game that kind of really puts you in the shoes of this normal, non-special, everyday adventurer taking on a larger-than-life challenge. They had a lot of different cool systems. Probably the biggest standout to me and a lot of people was how they managed your backpack. So rather how it works in most RPGs where you just have this magical inventory you stuff stuff into, like you're taking a giant two-handed sword and putting it in your pockets or whatever. In Outward, you have got this big honking bag that you have to physically manage and carry around. And as would kind of make sense, this thing made walking around a lot more cumbersome. So anytime that you wanted to do something that required any sort of agility, like jumping big gaps or getting in these intense combat encounters, you were best taking your bag off because while it was on, your stamina generation, your dodging, all that stuff was way worse. So you would literally slide your bag off your shoulders and physically place it on the ground and then go do the thing, whatever it was. You'd fight the boss and you'd take whatever loot that they dropped and then you'd bring it back to your backpack, load it in, pick it up, and then head back off exploring. It was minor and sounds like it'd be a pain, but it actually really added a really interesting element to the game that I enjoyed. It just made the experience of exploring feel a lot more grounded. I really appreciated it. So Outward 2 aims to build upon that formula with some notable changes and improvements. They're going to be ramping up the difficulty with more challenging enemies on top of the survival-like elements of managing your hunger, thirst, exhaustion, and dealing with the weather. They're promising a bunch more playstyle options. You've got all these different weapons that each have their own movesets, armor with unique protections, pros and cons, as well as a magic skill system like the original where you're taking these different components and combining them to cast your abilities. Also, you can't just waltz in front of any enemy and start fighting. Foes in this game, even the most basic kind, do require some forethought and preparation, combining the clever use of the environment, placing down traps, using potions, poisons, spells, and all of the equipment that you have at your disposal. The combat system has also seen some improvements. It should be more flexible and responsive. Basic attacks, dodging, rolls, block skills. You got a two-handed weapon system where you can put weapons in either hand or both, depending on how you want to combine things. Also, the game will be both brutal and unforgiving at times. Death doesn't just mean like you respawn back exactly how you are. Sometimes you're going to wake up back in town badly injured and will need to do things to recover. Other times you might be robbed of items from your bag by some bandits that came by as you were incapacitated. They even have a hardcore mode where every death has a 20% chance of deleting your save file entirely. It's just gone. There will be 3 distinct starting locations, character background to choose from with things like your family, religion, occupation, and personality traits. These all coming with different perks and debuffs. The backpack will play just as important of a role as in the first game with some new additions. And the game is going to be supporting both online co-op and split screen, which is a nice addition as well. The original was really interesting, so I'm very keen on the sequel. Outward 2 is scheduled to release in the third quarter of 2026, coming to PC. What if someone made The Witcher, but you played as a blood-sucking vampire with supernatural abilities? Well, that is the pitch for Blood of Dawnwalker, an upcoming open-world dark fantasy RPG from Rebel Wolves, a new studio made up of a bunch of ex-CD Projekt Red developers. And yeah, dude, like a Witcher-style game where you're a vampire, that sounds cool. Really all I need to hear, which I guess is good considering official details are fairly light on this game at the moment. We did get a couple of trailers as well as some gameplay and a basic overview. So the gist is, it is 14th century Europe. You are in the region of Vale Sangora. This is where it all takes place. We're going to be exploring these landscapes. We got swamps and towering mountains to abandoned ruins and shadowy caves. The region's major city of Svar Trau changes drastically between the day and the night. During the day, you've got bustling medieval life that's masking the influence of the vampire clans, while at nighttime, the blood-hungry stalkers come out to play, and it's quite a playground for them. And this day-night duality actually has a direct impact on you, the player. During the day, you are a human who wields a sword and uses magical runes, but then once the night comes, you transform into like a fully fledged vampire with supernatural instincts and an entirely new power set, with nocturnal abilities including lethal vampiric claws and the ability to shadow step, letting you teleport across the rooftops as you chase down your prey. The game uses a directional combat system. This actually reminds me a bit of Chivalry, designed to bring tactical challenge to every encounter. You'll have to study enemy movesets, block precisely from the angles they're attacking, attacking and then counterattack. Also during the nighttime, you need to satiate your bloodlust. Besides draining the blood of humans, you can manage your thirst via vampires, animals, and special blood vials. And this isn't just a thirst meter that you have to keep track of, as not taking care of your cravings in time not only weaken your abilities and defenses, it can actually cause you to lose control of your character, which may result in something like the death of important story characters. So yeah, something to pay attention to. They released a 20-minute gameplay walkthrough showing off some of these features, along with all sorts of the expected open world RPG narrative stuff, like you'll talk to NPCs, you got dialogue trees and stories to follow, various cinematic moments, etc. It all looks pretty cool. The Blood of Dawnwalker is scheduled to release sometime in 2026. It'll be coming to PC, PlayStation, and Xbox. Valor Mortis is another interesting looking game coming next year. It's a first-person Souls-like. Yeah, I know everyone's getting tired about hearing about Souls-like games, but to be fair, this one does have a relatively unique twist on the formula, because I can't think of many or any first-person games that really attempted this type of Souls-like melee combat. Valor Mortis has you playing as this recently resurrected casualty of the Napoleonic Wars. After coming back to life, you find yourself surrounded by other hostile walking corpses. You've got melee attacks, light and heavy. There's the ability to dash, parry, ranged with a pistol, and a touch of magic in the form of fireballs from what we've seen thus far, and apparently there will be many more beyond this. Hands-on impressions coming out of this year's Gamescom were fairly positive. Skillup mentioned in his video that aside from some awareness issues kind of inherent to this first-person up-close perspective, that he enjoyed his time with the demo that he got to play. The setting's really cool, combat seems simple but well done, certainly something I want to see and hear more about. The Steam page gives a brief overview where they say you play as William, a soldier of the Granda army, brought back from a battlefield grave, but the Europe you awaken to is not the one you sacrifice for. A mysterious plague now sweeps the continent and you have been reborn with its corrupting power pulsing through your veins. You'll have to master a combat system of parries, dashes, and visceral finishers across a variety of weapons. You enhance attacks and unlock new supernatural abilities as you progress, and lots of secrets to discover. You've got some fun mobility options, I guess the perks of being undead, which lets you traverse levels with ease. And I have heard there's a bunch of Metroidvania elements in here as well. You'll come across blocked off areas that you will later gain access to as you find new tools and spells to bypass it. Valor Mortis is scheduled to release sometime in 2026. It'll be for PC, PlayStation, and Xbox. All right, the next game doesn't yet officially have a release date, but it has been on the books for 2026 as far as I've heard, and it's one of the upcoming games that I am most excited about. It's Light No Fire. And look, Hello Games via Sean Murray really screwed up the messaging, setting their expectations prior to the release of No Man's Sky. There is no denying that, but I would say at the same time, there's also no denying the crazy levels of post-launch support and updates this game has received over the past 9 years. In fact, I can't think of a single example where I have seen a game get this many updates so consistently over so many years without charging a single additional penny for it. Now, some people might argue they were required to do this to get anywhere close to what they initially pitched the game to be, but they didn't have to. In fact, if you look at 99.99% repeated developers in the entire industry, pretty much every single other studio would have either charged for some of these updates, or they just wouldn't have updated the game for 9 straight years for free. It's unprecedented. It doesn't happen. So I just want to say, for however many issues we have about pre-launch No Man's Sky and the launch version of No Man's Sky, you got to give credit where it's due. And 9 years of free updates, people might say they needed to do it to live up to their promise. Nobody needs to do anything. They could have just abandoned it. And most developers, like I said, 99.99% of the industry would have either abandoned it or maybe done a couple of updates that they simultaneously charged for. So yes, we can say they had to do it, but they didn't have to do anything, yet they did. And I think that is worthy of recognition considering the comparative examples of the entire flipping industry. So yes, point being, No Man's Sky's post-launch support, it leaves me with a lot of hope for their next project, Light No Fire, which by all accounts is looking to be No Man's Sky Fantasy Edition and taking place on one massive planet rather than an entire space-based solar system. But they say it's like a solar system-sized planet. Here we go again, dude. Anyways, yeah, the pitch is pretty cool, and if they can actually deliver on what they are saying pre-release, unlike the last time, this could be tons of fun. I also prefer fantasy to sci-fi sci-fi. I like the brief glimpses that we've seen from the initial trailers, and by all accounts, many of the recent major updates for No Man's Sky that they have received is kind of acted as a testing bed for what they're hoping to do with Light No Fire, and there have been some really cool recent updates to No Man's Sky. Now, as a quick reminder, the bullet point details of Light No Fire include, they call this an exploration-focused sandbox survival crafting game in a fantasy setting with action combat that mixes melee, ranged, and magic. You got a planet the size of the real Earth with no boundaries, they say, massively varied, dense, filled with immersive biomes, unique enemies, and valuable resources. It's going to have a multiplayer focus from the start. You will be meeting other people in the open world, they say, exploring, fighting, building, and surviving together. And similar to No Man's Sky, the planet is full of different locations and points of interest to be discovered and named by the player base. Yeah, I don't know what to say. I'm really looking forward to this, and I hope they can actually deliver on the game's release. Light No Fire is rumored to be launching in sometime in 2026. I do think there is actually a good chance we get some more details in the coming months, most likely during the Game Awards this coming December. All right, Grand Theft Auto 6. So pretty obvious inclusion here. This is easily going to be one of the biggest games of next year, kind of a foregone conclusion. That said, I never even got around to playing GTA 5, so my personal hype levels, like, they aren't super high, though I'm sure I'd enjoy it if I played it. I don't have like anything against Grand Theft Auto 5. I played GTA as a kid and I really liked it. I guess if anything, this is just further proof that there are too many damn video games. People talk about how there's no good video games. My argument is that there's actually too many good video games. If you like more than a couple of genres, there's so many good games. I do this as a full-time career, playing and talking about games, and I don't even have the time to get to all of the good games. I haven't even found the time to play GTA 5. Like, that's what I'm talking about. Anyways, I'm definitely gonna make an effort this time around to check out GTA 6 when it launches. Like I said, I played the older ones as a kid, and I had a lot of good fun. Like, I have got good memories with those games. I'm also interested in finally learning what all the fuss is about with GTA Online, because that's certainly coming in GTA 6, right? Every other game is getting out of its way. We know this. Grand Theft Auto 6 is currently scheduled to release on May the 26th. All right, so that does it. Now, again, this is just an early list. There will be many, 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 many other games coming in 2026. As the months roll on, we're going to keep hearing about new games. New games will get announced and released. Some of the games we know about that don't have target release windows, we'll get those in 2026. That's going to happen. In fact, as of today, there aren't even many games with dates pinned down beyond March. Like, most of the games with confirmed 2026 release dates are between January and March, and that's basically it. So yes, there's going to be a lot more coming. This is just my early list of the things that, as of here, mid-October, I'm really looking forward to playing next year. 2025 was a pretty solid year in gaming. I had a lot of fun with a lot of different games. Fingers crossed that 2026 is going to be good as well. Already the first couple of months are looking pretty good. Looking pretty good. All right, that's it. That'll do it for today. Thank you for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed as always. Let me know what you're looking forward to in 2026 on this list or otherwise. I'd love to hear more games. Hey, more games to play. More games to add to the list of games I don't have time to play. All right, see you guys next time. Take it easy.